Ever wondered what women did before modern medicine? Could you stomach the treatments your ancestors endured? Did medieval doctors really think mice could cure toothaches in pregnant women? Number 6. Fumigation. Smoke it out. Have you ever been so desperate to solve a health problem that you'd sit over smoking herbs with your skirts hiked up? For medieval women, this wasn't an unusual Tuesday. It was standard medical practice. When a woman in medieval times suffered from feminine troubles, physicians often prescribed fumigation. The treatment involved positioning a woman over a steaming pot of herbs, allowing the medicinal vapors to enter the body directly. Think of it as a medieval vaginal steam bath, but with more fire hazards and questionable ingredients. Doctors believed the womb was a separate entity that wandered around the body, causing all sorts of trouble. When this wandering womb needed coaxing back into position, nothing worked better than some strategic smoke, apparently. Medical texts from the era suggest using everything from garlic and onions to more exotic substances like myrrh, storax, and calamine. One particularly popular fumigation recipe included burning deer horn, which must have created a truly unforgettable aroma throughout the household. The smoke was thought to either attract the womb if pleasant-smelling substances were used, or repel it back into place if foul odors were employed. A woman might spend hours perched uncomfortably over these smoking concoctions, sweating profusely while inhaling potentially toxic fumes. The heat and aromatic compounds were believed to bring balance to the humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, that governed women's health, according to medieval medicine. Some manuscripts even suggest combining fumigation with pessaries, wool tampons soaked in various substances, for a multi-pronged approach to feminine health. Imagine the dedication it took to follow these elaborate procedures with no guarantee of relief. Interestingly, variations of fumigation therapy remained in use well into the 18th century. While modern gynecologists might raise their eyebrows at these smoke-based solutions, they reflect medieval understanding of female anatomy and the desperate need for remedies in a time when women's pain was often dismissed or misunderstood. Number 5. Bleeding stones. The menstrual miracle rocks. Would you rub a red stone on your body to regulate your period? In medieval Europe, many women did exactly that. Bloodstones, jasper, and other red-hued minerals were highly prized for treating menstrual disorders. The medieval mind operated on sympathetic magic, the idea that like affects like. Red stones could affect red blood. Simple, right. These special stones were thought to possess almost magical properties for controlling women's monthly cycles. If a woman's flow was too heavy, healers would bind specific stones to her thighs or place them on her lower abdomen to stem the bleeding. Conversely, if her periods had stopped, a common concern since regular menstruation was considered essential for female health, different stones were prescribed to restart the flow. The 11th century physician Constantine the African recommended jasper specifically, writing that it should be worn against the skin to regulate menstruation. Hildegard of Bingen, a remarkable 12th century abbess and medical writer, suggested bloodstone for excessive bleeding. Women would carry these stones in pouches, wear them as amulets, or place them directly on the body. Some treatments even involved grinding the stones into powder and consuming them with wine or water, an approach that could range from harmless to potentially toxic depending on the mineral. What's particularly fascinating is that the use of these stones wasn't just physical but existed at the intersection of medicine, religion, and magic. Prayers and incantations often accompanied the application of healing stones. A woman might recite specific words while applying her bloodstone, combining faith healing with what passed for medical treatment. One medieval manuscript recommends engraving stones with specific symbols to enhance their power over the womb. Another suggests that the most powerful menstrual stones were those found in the nests of certain birds or in the heads of toads, showing how the extraordinary was often deemed more medically potent than the ordinary. While today, we understand that rubbing a red stone on your belly won't regulate your hormones, these treatments gave medieval women something modern medicine sometimes fails to provide: a sense of control over their bodies during confusing and frightening health experiences. Number 4. Pessaries. Medieval tampons with a twist. Could you imagine inserting a wool tampon soaked in pulverized pig brain and bull's bile? Medieval women did this routinely. Pessaries were among the most common treatments for various female complaints in the Middle Ages. Unlike our modern conception of pessaries as structural supports, medieval versions were more like medicinal delivery devices, wool or linen tampons soaked in an astonishing array of substances. These treatments addressed everything from fertility issues to menstrual pain, hysteria, and postpartum complications. The wool would be shaped into a convenient size, soaked in the prescribed mixture, and then inserted into the vagina, where it would remain for hours or even days. The ingredients list for these pessaries reads like a witch's cauldron inventory. Common components included honey, which, to be fair, does have antipercural properties, various herbs like artemisia and pennyroyal, animal parts, including hare's brain and crushed crab shells, and substances that make modern readers squirm: pigeon droppings, cow dung, and various bodily fluids. One 12th century recipe recommended a pessary made of elephant dung to encourage conception. Another, for cleansing the womb, called for wool soaked in oil of irises, myrrh, and wormwood. For contraspem, yes, medieval women sought this too. Pessaries might contain more caustic substances like copper salts or alum, which likely worked by causing irritation that prevented conception or implantation. The string attached to these early tampons served the same purpose as modern versions: retrieval, but medieval women had to be particularly careful, as some recipes warned that leaving certain pessaries in too long could corrupt the womb or cause other harm. Healers and midwives would prepare these concoctions according to recipes passed down through generations or found in medical texts like the Tritula, a collection of medical writings on women's health from medieval Salerno. Women of means might consult university-trained physicians for their pessary prescriptions, while those of lower social status relied on local wise women or their own knowledge. Perhaps the most surprising fact about these treatments is that, despite their often dubious ingredients, some may have provided genuine relief. Modern research has confirmed that certain herbs commonly used in these pessaries do indeed have anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic, or antimidic properties. Even the wool itself may have offered structural support for prolapse, a condition common among medieval women who typically experienced numerous childbirths. Number 3. Mouse remedies. Rodents as medicine. Would you eat a roasted mouse to cure your child's bedwetting? Does the thought of placing mouse droppings on your breasts sound like a reasonable mastitis treatment? Mice weren't just household pests in medieval times. They were walking, squeaking pharmacies. These tiny rodents featured prominently in women's healthcare, particularly for pregnancy and mesting concerns. For pregnant women suffering from toothaches, a common pregnancy complaint then as now, one recommended treatment was to apply half of a split, warm, freshly killed mouse to the cheek. The mouse's body heat and supposed drawing properties would allegedly pull the pain from the tooth. Medieval medical texts reasoned that mice had exceptionally strong teeth that helped them gnaw through wood and other hard materials, so they must contain properties beneficial for dental health. Breastfeeding difficulties received particular attention in mouse-based remedies. If a new mother struggled with insufficient milk, healers might recommend a broth made from boiled mice. For painful breast engorgement or mastitis, a poultice of crushed mice might be applied directly to the affected breast. Some recipes called for mixing mouse droppings with honey to create a salve for cracked nipples. The specificity of these treatments could be remarkable. Some texts insisted that only field mice would work for certain conditions, while others required the mouse to be prepared in particular ways, skinned but not gutted, or vice versa. One remedy for easing childbirth pain called for a mouse that had been drowned in wine, dried, ground to powder, and then mixed with more wine for the laboring woman to drink. The medieval mind saw significant connections between mice and women's reproductive health. Because mice breed rapidly and prolifically, they were associated with fertility. Their ability to squeeze through tiny holes suggested they might help babies navigate the birth canal. Their underground nesting habits connected them symbolically to the mysterious inner workings of the female body. These treatments crossed social boundaries. Queens and peasant women alike might turn to mouse remedies when struggling with female-specific health issues. While the thought makes modern readers recoil, for medieval women, mice represented accessible medicine. Unlike expensive imported spices or rare minerals, mice could be caught in any village or castle. Perhaps most surprising to modern sensibilities is how matter-of-factly these treatments were recorded in medieval medical texts. There was nothing particularly shocking or disgusting about these rodent remedies to contemporary readers. They were simply another tool in the healing arsenal, recorded alongside herbal preparations and dietary advice with equal seriousness. Number 2. Urine therm, the golden treatment. Did you know medieval women drank their husband's urine to cure infertility? Would you wash your face in urine if it promised to remove freckles and smooth wrinkles? Before you wrinkle your nose too quickly, consider that urine therapy wasn't just a medieval oddity, but one of the most versatile treatments available to women in the Middle Ages. This abundant, free substance was considered a powerful medicine, especially for female ailments. Physicians and midwives of the era prized urine for its diagnostic properties, similar to modern urinalysis, but went much further by prescribing it as treatment. Medical texts from the period describe urine's alleged ability to purify, cleanse, and balance the body's humors. For women struggling to conceive, drinking a mixture of their husband's urine and wine was thought to enhance fertility. The reasoning followed ancient Galenic medicine. Male urine contained essential masculine properties that could help heat a woman's supposedly cold womb and make it more receptive to conception. Urine figured prominently in pregnancy and childbirth as well. To predict a baby's gender, a woman might urinate on a leaf. If it turned red, a boy was expected. If it turned black, preparations for a girl would begin. During difficult labor, a woman might drink a mixture of her husband's urine and herbs to speed delivery. Beauty treatments, always an important aspect of women's health, in any era, relied heavily on urine therapy. Medieval beauty manuals recommended washing the face in urine, preferably a child's, considered pure, to fade spots and maintain youthful skin. The ammonia in urine does indeed have mild exfoliating properties, making this perhaps one of the less far-fetched treatments. For menstrual difficulties, compresses soaked in heated urine might be applied to the lower abdomen. One 13th century manuscript recommends a steam bath of urine mixed with specific herbs for women suffering from cold in the womb, a catch-all diagnosis for many gynecological complaints. Some treatments combined urine with other substances to create complex medications. A remedy for breast pain called for mixing urine with crushed ivy and applying it as a warm poultice. For vaginal infections, douching with diluted urine was commonly recommended. Wealthier women might be prescribed specialized urine treatments, using the urine of specific individuals, young boys for certain conditions, postmenopausal women for others. The social status of the urine provider sometimes mattered as much as the medical preparation. While modern medicine has abandoned urine as a therapeutic substance, outside very specific medical applications, it's worth noting that urine is sterile when fresh and does contain compounds with mild antibacterial properties. In a world without easy access to soap or antibiotics, urine may have offered better cleansing properties than plain water for wound care and skin conditions. What's particularly remarkable about medieval urine therapy isn't just its widespread use, but how it crossed boundaries between formal medicine and folk healing. University-trained physicians prescribed it alongside self-taught midwives and village healers, a rare point of agreement in medieval medical practice. Number 1. Womb fumigation. Smoking out demon. Could an evil spirit be causing your menstrual cramps? Would you let someone burn sulfur beneath your skirts to drive it out? In the shadowy intersection of medieval medicine and religious belief, we find one of the most dramatic treatments for women's ailments: exorcistic womb fumigation. This wasn't just medical treatment. It was spiritual warfare conducted via the female reproductive system. Unlike the herbal fumigations mentioned earlier, these treatments specifically targeted supernatural causes of female suffering. When ordinary remedies failed to resolve chronic pain, infertility, or irregular bleeding, medieval healers might conclude that demonic influence was at work. The procedure was elaborate and intimidating. A woman would be positioned over a brazier containing burning substances selected specifically for their demon-repelling properties. Sulfur asafoetida, known as devil's dung for its horrible smell. Bitumen and other foul-smelling materials. Religious texts or incantations would be read aloud while the smoke enveloped her lower body, supposedly forcing any demonic presence to flee. Medical texts from the period describe this treatment matter of factly alongside more conventional approaches. The 12th century Trotula collection includes fumigation recipes specifically designed to drive out bad air or malevolent influences from the womb. Other manuscripts describe how certain gynecological symptoms, particularly excessive bleeding or pain, indicated possible demonic attachment. This treatment existed in a fascinating gray area between medicine and religion. Unlike purely religious rituals performed by priests, these fumigations were often administered by midwives or female healers, sometimes incorporating both prayers and practical herbal knowledge. The exorcistic fumigations reflect medieval understanding of the female body as particularly vulnerable to supernatural influence. The womb was viewed as semi-autonomous and potentially receptive to outside forces, both beneficial and malevolent. This belief wasn't limited to uneducated peasants. Even learned physicians incorporated elements of spiritual warfare into their gynecological treatments. For the women who underwent these treatments, the experience must have been intense. Imagine being racked with pain, then subjected to choking, eye-watering fumes while prayers are chanted around you. The psychological impact alone would be significant, either terrifying or reassuring, depending on the woman's own beliefs. Interestingly, some historians have suggested these dramatic treatments may have provided genuine psychological relief through what we now understand as the placebo effect. The social validation of a woman's suffering and the community ritual aspect of treatment might have offered comfort even when physical relief was minimal. These fumigations weren't limited to Christian contexts either. Jewish and Muslim medical traditions in medieval Europe and the Middle East included similar practices, though with variations in the religious elements and sometimes in the substances used. As unsettling as demon-expelling smoke treatments might seem to modern readers, they represent a coherent response to illness in a world where the boundaries between physical, psychological, and spiritual suffering were much less distinct than they are today. Are these treatments really so different from our modern search for wellness? How would future generations judge our current medical practices? What lengths would you go to for relief if you lived in a time before modern medicine?